Okay, let's get to it. Lockdown. There's a lot of good stuff about Lockdown. There's one bad thing, and two things that were kind of like, I don't know. First, let's get the bad stuff out of the way. The VKM match, as lame as we all knew it was going to be. No surprises there. Second, cuffed in a cage. I said earlier that I had concerns that this match was going to be too cluttered with so many people in there, and it was. Okay, there were a couple cool spots here. Flux capacitor, top rope choke slam. Jimmy Rave took some interesting bumps, but overall this was just a big clusterfuck. I mean, there was potential for something good there, but it just didn't work. The handcuff stipulation was just stupid. An elimination match would have been much better than this. And why in God's name did you have a jobber monsters, the two guys without contracts, the worst workers in there by a country mile, be the last ones to be eliminated? Oh my God. The writers must have been smoking crack when they booked that. But at least the right team won, Kaz and Eric. And by the right team, I mean any team but the jobber monsters. And now this has got to be the end of this feud. Kaz and Eric are like 10-0 against those losers now. And to extend this thing any further would just drag this program into Hornswoggle territory, okay? Now just give Kaz and Eric something meaningful to do already and send Dustin's out-of-shape ass to the unemployment line where it belongs. Third, the mixed tag match. Kind of a good news, bad news thing here. First of all, Sharmell did basically nothing until the end. That was the good part. Mostly it was just Booker T and Robert Roode. And the action wasn't bad. It just felt more like an Impact match than a pay-per-view match. I mean, frankly, their first Blood match a few weeks ago was much better than this. And it didn't get the time it needed to really develop into anything significant, and the finish came out of nowhere. I was left with mixed feelings about this one. I mean, I definitely think it's time to end this feud, but at the same time, this was a pretty anticlimactic way to do it. So, whatever. But now let's talk about the great stuff about Lockdown. First of all, the escape match. Now, I have read some ridiculous things about this match. Some people criticizing it for being a spot fest. Spot fest? What kind of crap is that? So you're saying that this match would have been better if they hadn't have done the Tower of Doom spot, if Daniels hadn't have dove off the top of the cage? You people are idiots. And it's not like the match didn't tell a story. It told a good story with the tease of what was going to happen with Sanjay Dutt and if he was going to turn on Jay Lethal or not. And then Sanjay got eliminated first, but he stuck around and helped Jay Lethal when Johnny Devine tried to cheat to win. And what I liked about this angle was that the vignettes of these two in SoCal Val that we've been seeing over the last month or so, with Lethal being completely oblivious to the fact that Sanjay is obviously trying to steal his girlfriend, now make more sense retroactively. Because now we can sort of see why Jay Lethal would never think that Sanjay would screw him over despite mounting evidence to the contrary. Because now he can just look back at this match, go up to Sanjay and be like, Sanjay, man, you are a great friend. Man, you totally had my back in there. And that just means that it's going to have that much more impact when Sanjay finally does turn on Jay Lethal. Next, Queen of the Cage. Now, the great thing about this match, aside from the fact that the right person won, I'll get to that in a minute, but the great thing about this match was that by adding the 6 sides of steel to the equation, TNA has finally found a way to execute this reverse battle royal stipulation in such a way that it makes sense. Because what they've done, when they've done this in the past, it looks stupid as hell. You had guys fighting with each other or just walking around ringside, by themselves when it would be the easiest thing in the world to just jump into the ring without anyone stopping them. It was completely ridiculous. But if you make it so the wrestlers have to scale the cage to get into the ring, that ridiculousness goes away. It makes the stipulation so much more realistic. So now, whenever TNA have reverse battle royals in the future, they just need to break out the 6 sides of steel, and that way it won't be stupid anymore. As for the other great thing about this match, Roxy Laveau got the win, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. Roxy's getting over really well as a babyface now. There were a ton of Roxy chants, throughout this match, and I'm like 90% sure I heard some Nikki chants in there too. The Barbie Crusher finisher's getting really over. They had a nice match. Roxy gets the title shot, and now we have a new, fresh contender for the Women's Championship. And it's great that they're doing that now before the Gail Kong ODB feud became stale. And now they can have Roxy face Kong for a while and have Gail and ODB ease back a little bit, maybe fight with Raisha Saeed for the time being. Speaking of Saeed, she and Gail Kim get the prize for the move of the night in their tag match, turning a top rope powerbomb into a fucking Hurricane Rana. Man, if they could have done that in midair, it would have been shades of like Kid Cash and Easy Money. You know, you guys wonder why I talk about the Knockouts division so much. It's because of stuff like that. Okay, next, Lethal Lockdown match. Okay, this thing was nuts. A little cluttered. I'll copy that. A little cluttered, but nuts. There are a bunch of cool spots here. Christian doing a crossbody off the top of the cage. James Storm and wow, I guess Storm got over his fear of heights, didn't he? James Storm dumping Christian and AJ off a ladder, through a table, on top of the cage. You know, Matt Morgan, he didn't really get showcased as much as I was hoping he would, but he got a good rub just by debuting in a high-profile match like this. And there was that nice stereo choke slam spot with him and Nash. I thought that was cool. And I love how they keep teasing Christian versus Tomko, having them interact just enough to whet the fans' appetite for more, and then pulling back. You know, I think this could really turn into a money feud if they do it right, because there's so much heat between these two characters right now. There's months of build up with this thing, and they haven't even had a singles match yet. You know, I think if the writers are smart about this, they could extend this feud until it climaxes at Bound for Glory easily. And then the main event. Now I got a little nervous about I got a little nervous about the main event when they showed Karen Angle in the crowd before the match started, and I was like, oh God, what are they gonna do here? And but then they did the right thing. They sent her away. They made Kurt look like a bastard, and she never came back. Very good, very good decision on TNA's part. Now, how you felt about the match itself probably depends on how you feel about MMA, because there was definitely an MMA feel to this match. A lot of submissions, a lot of reversals, a lot of ground stuff. And some people are probably going to crap on this match and say it was dull. And as I understand it, it did come off better on TV than it did in front of the live crowd. But I didn't think this was dull at all, because what it arguably lacked in traditional wrestling action, it made up for with drama and meaning. I mean, yeah, it started out slow. I'll admit that. It started out very slow, but it was all about building up the drama. So when they finally went for the more, pro wrestling-oriented spots, every move meant something. Because when Joe kicked Angle on the turnbuckle, it meant more. When Angle charged at Joe in the corner and Joe drove him to the mat, it meant more. Joe got the win. Joe's the new world champion. So that's been long deserved. As for Lockdown, there were a couple things that just didn't work. I'll admit that. About this show, but it was mostly the stuff I was half expecting to be bad anyway. So there were no real surprises as far as that goes. The stuff that worked really well, I thought. Overall, I think this was definitely a very good show. Probably one of the best pay-per-views TNA's put on since Bound for Glory. And Sacrifice is up next. So that's coming next month. We already know what the main event's going to be, because they wouldn't announce that 2 weeks ago. The Sacrifice hype starts this Thursday. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys then.